Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in Los Angeles, California. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're well. I hope you're happy, healthy, and having some fun. Today is Monday, so we're going to talk about a monkey species. So today's Critter Chat is about a very beautiful and very curious and sometimes a little obnoxious monkey called the Vervet monkey. Vervet monkeys come from Africa. They are medium-sized. They kind of live along the eastern half of Africa, from Ethiopia near the top of Africa, all the way down to South Africa. The habitat that they live in is often referred to as the acacia woodlands. Acacia are trees that giraffes love to eat, and so these are trees that are kind of right on the edge of the grasslands. And it's an important habitat for a lot of animals because it's animals that can tolerate a little hotter, drier climate without living in the dense forest areas of Africa, the tropical forest, rainforest areas. But it's animals who still need some trees to be happy and healthy. And these monkeys are one of those animals that live in that area. Leopards also typically live in that area and are one of the major predators for this monkey species. One thing that's very important about vervet monkeys, they need to drink water every day and they need to be near water. So they're only going to live in habitats that can support that have good sized trees where they can climb up and rest at night and sleep in some safe environments, but also where they can get plenty to drink and live near a water source. They also live in some mountain areas around that area, and also some islands off the coast of Africa through Kenya and Tanzania specifically. They live in family groups called troops that can be up to about 50 individuals. I never saw any in groups quite that large, but the ones I saw were definitely social and interacting with each other. And they will sometimes hang out with other species of monkeys as well, particularly baboons and another type of monkey that kind of lives in that same grassland border area called the patus monkey. Patus monkeys actually spend most of their time on the ground. Vervet monkeys are about 50-50. They're comfortable on the ground. They're comfortable up in the trees. They do sleep up in trees. That is mostly so they can be a little safer from any of their predators. They are omnivores, so that means they'll eat about everything, with their favorites being flowers, seeds, fruits, and insects. They sometimes will also eat some small animals, small mammals, small birds, bird eggs, small reptiles, and occasionally they'll maybe eat something bigger if they find it. Like I said, they're medium size of a monkey, so they're about 1.5 feet in length, weighing in between 7 and 17 pounds. So think of them kind of at the size of a house cat, or possibly a little bit bigger than that, a little heavier. With vervet monkeys, they have a pretty unique color to them. They're kind of this olive green over most of their body, kind of like my shirt here today. I have a lot of leaves in my way today. Let's see if I can move that branch. There we go. But they kind of have this greenish gray colored fur over most of their body, and then they have white right around their face. So the picture I posted earlier today on Facebook and Instagram is a close-up. You see most of that white hair, but throughout their body they're a bit darker, kind of this olivey gray color. And then they have black faces, black hands, black feet, and a black stripe on their tail, or a ring. Oh, and their ears are usually dark too. Then they have that white hair just above their eyes and around on their cheeks, on their face. And they are as a very social monkey, most monkeys are pretty social. These guys communicate through a variety of means, including facial expressions, vocalizations, and one of their most important habits is grooming. They spend a lot of time grooming each other. That reinforces the social bonds in their group. Although compared to a lot of other monkeys, their social bonds are important, but their hierarchy is a little more loose. There's still kind of a dominant male who's in charge of the troop, but they all kind of just work together. They're pretty peaceful. There's not a lot of fights between them, or even other troops of the same species can come into their territory. They're usually okay with that unless food is really scarce. They are really good at making predator alarm calls, and they can understand the alarm calls of both the baboons and the patas monkeys and any of the other species that they may hang out with, which is pretty cool communication. They can basically speak other languages. Predators they would need to watch out for: number one, leopards, also hyenas. A lion or a cheetah would certainly try to eat them if it presented itself, but they're pretty quick at scampering up a tree, and a cheetah and a lion usually aren't going to follow them for that. Eagles will take them. There's a lot of big eagles in Africa that would definitely come down and try to get a monkey out of the tree. And in Africa, there's a really big snake called a rock python. A rock python would definitely go after a monkey, especially a baby monkey. When the babies are born, they're usually one baby per female. They're usually right around when the rainy season happens. That way, when the baby gets big enough to start eating food on its own, there's lots of food available. But everyone in the troop is super excited and willing to kind of help out with the babies. The baby vervet monkeys are born looking totally different than the adults. They're kind of covered in dark fur with pink faces. And so they really stand out against the adults, which are kind of that white and pale green color. That helps all members of the troop kind of keep their eye on the baby and where the baby may be. In case danger shows up, they make sure that they get the baby to a safe spot. Babies are born after a gestation period of about 5.5 months, or pregnancy, and they typically hang around on their mom for those first few months, 3 or 4 months, riding on her chest for the first little bit, then on her back. At about 4 months old, they start to get some adult coloration and start to turn kind of that whitish color around their face, and their skin on their face starts to go darker, and then they kind of get that pale green color on the rest of their body. They are able to feed themselves and are totally weaned from their mom by about 9 months old. So their childhood's a bit brief, but they're not considered mature until they're about 4 or 5 for females and 5 or 6 years old for males. During that time, when the males get mature, they will leave the troop and they will go usually join the neighboring troop, next troop over, or maybe 2 troops over, but they don't usually go too far away from where they were born. The female monkeys usually stay in the troop that they were born into and kind of occupy that same habitat most of their lives. Vervet monkeys are cheek pouch monkeys. That means they have little pockets on the sides of their face, kind of like a hamster. And as they're gathering food, they'll sometimes eat as they feed or as they find food. But then if they find something really big that's going to take more time, like nuts or something they'll have to crack open, they'll pop that into their cheek pouch and they'll kind of save it for later when they're resting, and then kind of pull it out and break it apart during that time frame. It also helps out in case predators come, or if they're gathering food in a more potentially dangerous habitat or near either predators or other forms of danger. They can shove a bunch of food in their cheek pouches and hold quite a bit of food for later on. During the night, they sleep up in the trees. They're very good climbers. They cannot use their tail to help hold on at all. Their tail is just for balance. As is true with all African monkeys and Asian monkeys, none of them can grab on with their tail. That's only monkeys in South America that can do that. As they wander about, they usually wander about 1 mile a day, so not a ton of wandering, but they are important seed dispersers because the seeds are one of their favorite foods. Some of those, once they poop them out, will continue to grow whatever plant they came from, and that's very important for their forest grassland habitat. They do always need tall trees to sleep in. preferring trees at least 25 feet tall where they sleep and rest from potential predators. So vervet monkeys also have a little bit of an interesting history on the other side of the world, away from Africa, in that they live in several places in the Americas. Now, this is something called an invasive species or an introduced species, or sometimes a feral species. So there are two big colonies of vervet monkeys that live in Florida. Somebody thought that they would be fun to have running around in Florida and released some into the wilds of Florida in the 1950s. They are not the only kind of monkey that lives in Florida, but they are one of them that has thrived pretty well. But they do sometimes cause problems in Florida, stealing fruit or seeds that people are planting in their yards. That's right around, I think, the Fort Lauderdale area is where the vervet monkeys are in Florida. They're not the biggest problem monkey in Florida, but they are one of the problem monkeys in Florida. They are also on several islands in the Caribbean. They think that they've been there for hundreds of years, brought over back in the days when the Caribbean became a very important agricultural area, raising sugarcane for most of the world, especially in Europe. Vervet monkeys were brought over. I don't know exactly why, but they live today on St. Kitts, St. Martin, and Barbados in the Caribbean. Particularly on St. Kitts Island, they have become quite a problem and often are either begging for food near touristy places, and people sometimes feed them, but also they are starting to destroy and really impact the fragile ecosystem on that island. Invasive species on that island have already wiped out 2 species of lizards and 1 species of snake that lived on the St. Kitts Island. Similar problems are happening in Barbados and St. Martin. Vervet monkeys have also been used by people as a lab test animal. Because they are a primate, their genetic code, their DNA is very similar to ours. And vervet monkeys were used in testing of the early stages of smallpox vaccine and several other important medical discoveries and breakthroughs. So although that's sometimes a touchy subject to test on animals, it has proven to be very helpful in helping create vaccines for people from very serious diseases. Today, the population of vervet monkeys is somewhat decreasing, but it's decreasing at a pretty slow rate, so they are still listed as least concern by the IUCN, so they are not in threat of becoming endangered. They do have some threats from humans. In Africa, their major threat is habitat loss, and their secondary threat is human conflict. Vervet monkeys are often very bold and very willing to come into areas where people are growing crops and are known to be crop raiders. So that sometimes causes some problems with people who are trying to grow fruits and vegetables and seeds and nuts to feed people. Our special shout out today is an organization called the Vervet Monkey Foundation. They are a charity organization located in South Africa that specifically takes in orphaned monkeys and tries to rehabilitate them with the potential of someday releasing them out into the wild. They work with a variety of monkeys, but vervet monkeys are kind of what they specialize in, and that's their name to the Vervet Monkey Foundation. As always, I like to talk a bit about my experiences. With the vervet monkeys, my experiences are mostly in the wild in Kenya. I was able to visit Kenya in 2010, and vervet monkeys were actually one of the very first species I saw. Upon arriving in Kenya, we saw them our first full day out driving in the bush. After being on the ground only about an hour, we had monkeys crossing right above us. It was super cool to be able to see them jumping through trees. In that area of Kenya, they really work closely with a antelope species that lives in kind of that same acacia woodland called the impala. And impala and vervet monkeys also understand each other's warning signs for predators. And so if the vervet monkeys make their warning sign, the impala know how to react if that's like a big cat, like a leopard, or hyenas. The impalas would definitely be scared as well. They also know that if the vervet monkeys make the eagle sound, the impalas don't need to worry about it too much unless they have babies with them. The eagles are not going to bother them. During my time in Kenya, we saw vervet monkeys almost every day that we were there. Some of my favorite experiences, we were in Samburu National Park, which is kind of in the middle of Kenya. It's a pretty dry place, but has a major river that runs through it. And as I mentioned earlier, vervet monkeys love to live near water sources. And there's a very beautiful lodge in Samburu National Park. And we stopped at the lodge to kind of just look around. We didn't stay there, but we were there for maybe 45 minutes or an hour and did a little walk along the riverbank there. And as we passed through the lodge, we walked through the dining room. And although it was not currently meal service time for people there, vervet monkeys had found their way into the dining room, and they were jumping table to table, checking to see if any of the rolls or bread baskets were still around, looking for food. I also saw a vervet monkey over near a little cabinet, opening all the drawers to check and see if there was anything for them in there. So they are very curious and very bold, coming into human areas looking for food. Later that same day, I told the story in our critter chat about baboons, how baboons surrounded us to try to steal our lunches. Vervet monkeys were also there at that same time. The baboons were the ones really trying to get the food, but the vervet monkeys were just a couple steps further back, waiting to see if the baboons were successful. Then they would also come in and try to steal some food. We had some vervet monkeys get pretty close to us at that time, but none of the vervet monkeys stole any food, whereas a couple baboons did. But that story is in the critter chat on baboons if you missed it. There was also a time where we were driving through the main game preserve where I stayed in Kenya in Lewa Wildlife Conservancy, where our truck had to stop and wait. We were waiting for someone to get back into the other truck that was traveling with us, so we waited for about 10-15 minutes. And vervet monkeys that were kind of up in the trees further away from us started to come over to inspect our truck. They dropped down onto the top of the truck, which was just a canvas covering, so you could see where their feet walked, the canvas would sink a little bit. And then one came down onto our windshield and was playing with the windshield wipers and trying to reach around into the truck to see if we had anything that it could eat. So they are very bold monkeys, especially for their size, because they're only about, like a house cat size compared to some of the other bigger monkeys like baboons that could actually cause some damage. A vervet monkey is pretty small for an African monkey. They are definitely really fun to watch. They're one of my favorite monkey species, and I really enjoyed my time seeing them in Africa. In my zoo career, I have never worked at a zoo that's had them, although I have seen them at other zoos. Recently, the San Diego Zoo opened a whole new Africa section about 2 years ago called Africa Rocks, and they have a beautiful exhibit with vervet monkeys there. I saw them last year when I visited at the San Diego Zoo. So if you're ever at San Diego Zoo, make sure you check them out. Otherwise, you may have to wait till Africa to see them. That's what I have to share today about vervet monkeys. Feel free to check out the other information I'll upload later today on the Facebook page. And as always, feel free to like, share, follow, and subscribe to any of my content across my platforms on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and at my website, jeremythezoonerd.com. Until tomorrow, be happy, be healthy, have fun, stay safe. See ya.